He keeps himself in trim by bending bars of iron. This bar is the genuine article which we tested before he began to play with it.
Beyond the bend, beyond the bend.
All right, Don, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. Really excited to have you on the show. Basically, you were probably the second account that I found when I was just searching hashtag steel bending or nail bending or whatever. And your account pretty much blew my mind because up until that point, I thought basically bending the red nail was sort of the top of the mountain. And I saw you bending red nails with 60 Ds taped to them, braced, and 60 gold nails in an hour or whatever, and all of these insane feats of strength. And it was just like, okay, this goes much, much deeper than I realized. So it was very cool to discover your page, and it's very cool to talk to you.
Oh, well, that's cool, man. I'm honestly so pumped for this podcast here and want to thank you for it. It's I love bending. It means so much to me. And honestly, I just love everything about it. And it's really cool to have this podcast to hopefully help grow the sport, and also just to get cool, unique perspectives from other benders out there and find out where they're from, what they've done. Very excited for your project here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's anytime, any of my interests, I always really enjoyed hearing people's backstories, however they maybe got into jiu-jitsu or whatever, any other things I've been into. I always went backwards and tried to figure out what people were like before it, and even bands and stuff like that. I'd find out, okay, what were they listening to, what influenced them and stuff. So it's always interesting to trace the steps backwards and figure out what motivates people and what sparked them to get into something and to get into it as deep as you have. It's very cool.
Yeah, no, and you can learn a lot from hearing other people's stories and finding out where they came from, and maybe take little tidbits that help you in your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I've already learned a lot from just talking to the few guys that I have. So take me back, and hopefully you remember. Tell me about the first time you saw someone bend a piece of steel.
So I don't remember the first time that I saw somebody bend it online or a video, but I know I started the grip, trying to get into grip training, and very quickly I saw the steel bending in the old-time strongmen, and I thought it just looked so badass, and I had to try it. And then once I tried it, I had so much fun doing it. So I don't remember exactly who it was or what the video was, but I do remember the first time I saw somebody bending in person. It was Delmar Carter, who Gil brought up during his podcast. And Delmar was a beast of a bender. And this was actually at Gil's grip competition, Southern Squeeze. And okay. Delmar was there competing too. And I had never been around somebody bending in person. Before then, I'd just been bending at home. And Delmar bent a Coab, a King of All Bastards from Fat Bastard, like it was a noodle. It was such an inspiring bend for me at the time to see somebody do something that was so elite and so high skilled. It really motivated me. It was a cool thing for me.
Wow. So what was, how'd you get into grip? Were you already lifting and you were just kind of specifying, or were you trying to improve your grip for some particular reason? Walk me through those steps.
Yeah, so I've always had some sort of physical, sport or activity that I've really been into, and I like to get obsessed about things and really throw myself into them. It was, growing up, it was wrestling. I also was into powerlifting and played football, and then once all that was done, I got really big into climbing, and for a long time, I did a lot of rock and ice climbing. And then after my kids were born, I live in Michigan. It's a long way to travel for that stuff. I kind of got out of the climbing, and I had a year or two where I didn't really have that thing that was, I could just push myself in. And then I found grip sport and started training for that. And almost instantly I saw the steel bending, and that's what I really fell in love with. And I did grip for a little bit, but I transitioned to just steel bending pretty quickly. And that's, I started, I think at the beginning of 2016. And since then steel bending's been my focus and passion.
Wow. That's a lot of progress in a pretty short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm obsessed with steel bending. It's, at night I'm looking up steel bending videos. I'm researching steel bending. I'm thinking about it all the time, and I just honestly love it.
No, I love that, and I'm very much the same way. And it's, my wife always kind of laughs because I find small talk, which is kind of funny for like me trying to host this show or whatever, but small talk is pretty difficult when you're just like shooting the shit with somebody about the weather or whatever. But if I sense that someone has some depth of love for any particular thing, it doesn't have to be the thing that I'm into. I just always find it interesting to talk to those people, you know, like where that they have a thing and they love it so much that after they do it, they're at home looking up videos or whatever. They just live it and love it so much, you know?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. It's fun talking to somebody who really loves something, and you see that spark in their eye when they talk about it.
Yeah, it's the best. It was like my wife was saying to her friend, with, you know, Cody is someone that needs a thing. And when my thing being jiu-jitsu got shut down due to the pandemic, I was kind of pretty worried because I had thought in the past, because I depend on jiu-jitsu for so much, you know, anyone that grapples understands basically the physical and mental release and of the exertion that you put yourself through and when you grapple. And I just really wondered what that would do to my life if I had that taken from me, whether it was injury or circumstance. And then boom, it happened, you know. And thankfully, I said to Dan Strauss on the podcast yesterday, was seeing his Instagram and his obsession with strength was really like what inspired me to start lifting and get a strength coach and really like take building strength very seriously. And it was lucky enough for me that I got a small home gym about a month before everything shut down here. And so I basically took all my obsession with jiu-jitsu and just pivoted it straight into lifting, and then just going deep with things as we do. I discovered grip, and then from there, you know, discovered bending, and just really developed a love for it all. But there's a special kind of love for bending because of I think it's the battle within it just reminds me so much of grappling. It really, it does so much.
Yeah, no, the battle is very similar for a couple reasons. I think one, because there's two different elements of the battle. You know, it's you against this other guy, and it's you against this piece of steel, but maybe even more important, it's you against yourself. You know, with grappling, you're pushing yourself to get better and your own performance, and same with the steel. It, you know, I think your inner battle and improving yourself is huge for both of them. And honestly, I think steel bending has so many great things to help grapplers, whether it's wrestling, like my background, or jiu-jitsu, like you. And there's just lots of different elements of it that are so key. One being isometric strength. You know, bending is largely an isometric activity where there's not a lot of movement. And you know, jiu-jitsu or wrestling, a lot of the same things. So many times you've got somebody wrapped up or you're in some different position and there's not a lot of movement. You know, isometric strength is so huge. And I think that carries over from bending to the grappling. And then also, besides the isometric nature of it, I think the odd angle nature of it.
Yes.
You know, straight line strength is one thing. You know, bench and squat, that's all very important. But bending works those in between muscles and in the odd angles and your tendons and all that different stuff, I think carries over greatly to grappling, because you're going to be having to exert your strength in very odd, weird positions and not just straight line positions. And bending's the same way, especially brace bending. I think brace bending's key for grapplers out of all the bending types.
Oh yeah, for sure. I agree. And once you get into the snapping, like we both enjoy, I feel like that the crossover there is even more, because now you have the endurance factor going. And if you're talking about snapping while lying down, it's even similar to guard work in jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. It's just the crossover is endless, you know.
Snapping, such a good exercise, and yeah, I agree. Great for grapplers.
The snapping, I really enjoy that, even though it's so physically taxing that it's like each time I do it, I'm like, Jesus. But there's something just nice that the battle has just begun when you've bent the thing. Now it's like the bend is a minor victory, and then now you have to continue on with that for however many minutes until that thing gives. It's like it's
a war.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah, you leave when you're done snapping, some big snap, your body is destroyed. It literally is one of the toughest activities I've ever done.
Yeah, it reminds me of like a Shark Tank in grappling or something like that. I'm just, after these few steel shredder attempts that I've done, especially the first one, I was just lying in a pool of my sweat on the mat, just needed a few minutes to recover. It's brutal.
It really is brutal.
But all right, actually, you just touched on brace bending. That's something I was going to get into a little bit later, but I want to know. So let's get into it right now. So what do you like? Why do you like brace so much? It seems to be your strongest style. And what are some key elements to having a good braced bend? Because in my experience, I feel like I'm pretty strong closing it down, but I feel like I almost have a weaker kink when bracing. And I bet you I'm missing some technical detail.
Yeah, we could probably, if you send me some videos, I guarantee I could watch them and improve on your crushing technique. The crush is my strongest part in brace bending, and that's why, I really like those short braced ones, because it's all about the crush. You crush from the start. So I think with that, you want your feet as close together as possible. And, a lot of people think it's like you're crushing with your legs, like you're kind of pushing in with them, but you're really not. I mean, it's when I'm crushing, I'm using every little tiny muscle in my entire body and transferring it through my hands into that bar. Like you learn to create tension in your body when you're doing it right. And, there's been lots of times where I've just zapped my central nervous system, because you're really using every nerve and little sinew and tendon in your body when you're doing it, if you're putting max effort into it, where I've zapped my nervous system. So I think, feet together, and then just learning to use every part of your body, not just your legs, or wrists when you're doing it, are the two biggest keys. But I like brace bending because there's just so much variety, so many different positions, so much core strength involved, and they're just fun positions. I love the short bars, but mid-length and long bar I love just as much. And you just put yourself in weird positions and have to learn how to create force, and you can bend some really big bars, which is cool.
When does it become like a mid-length bar? Like how long is that?
So I think if you go off of like David Horn's webpage, maybe the technical cutoff is 14 inches to 30 inches is mid-length. Above 30 to like 48 would be long bar. I think the cutoffs, 14 and under short, spike bends, I guess.
Yeah, the only mid-length stuff I've done then is for the steel shredder, and that was a wake-up call.
You got to do it. When I was saying brace bending, for grappling, I'm talking a lot about braced and mid-length. It's the most important thing with those as far as strength is your core. Like the sweet portion is normally the hardest portion of those bends, and it is all core power and core strength. And that's why I think, and it's in weird angles, core power and strength. And that's why I think it would carry over to grappling so well, though, those mid-length and long bars especially.
Yeah, definitely. I it might take a little bit, and maybe it'll never be, a huge training methodology, but I think we're going to see, especially after David went on the Raspberry 8 podcast, we're going to see more and more grapplers utilizing steel bending and snapping for training, because I just don't, outside of, going and getting a job as a bricklayer or something like that, I just don't think anything builds this type of strength as well as this does.
Yeah, it's great. We got a couple of my, friends locally who, are big into steel bending now, are, martial artists, and they got into it because of that. Amir Bayor and Chris Stilwell, both, Chris, I think, does BJJ and judo, Amir the BJJ, and they got into the steel bending initially to help their martial arts. And there's a couple other guys locally, I think, who are starting to get into it that I haven't met personally, but I've had a little communication with on Facebook.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I haven't really caught up with too many of my training partners in person yet, but I've been talking to them online, and they've been seeing what I've been up to, and they're all very intrigued, obviously, because it's not too typical training, that's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
So take me through a normal training week for you. What are you doing as far as, like, are you still running a normal weightlifting program, or what are you doing to get better at bending? How many days a week are you bending, etc.?
So my training program for the last couple of years has been essentially the same setup. I did a lot of experimentation and stuff until I figured out kind of a program that works for me and my body. I'm 42 and my body doesn't recover, as much as it used to. And so I can't train as often as, I would maybe like 3 days a week is what I can do. I try to do more, but my body just wouldn't recover. And so my breakdown, because with being a bender, bending has to be your the thing you're gonna do the most to get the most carryover. It's the bending. And so I bend 2 days a week, and then I do a strength program 1 day a week, because I think it's very important to keep your overall strength up. But I think more focus should be on the bending. So Mondays, I train, just general weights. And right now I'm doing mainly isometrics. And then Wednesday and Saturday, I bend. And when I say isometrics, some people on the show have been talking about bending isometrics. I'm talking about like general isometrics for strength, which I think are a great thing and really help you build a lot of strength and carries over great to bending.
Yeah, could you get more specific on that?
Yeah, so, isometrics basically where you're exerting effort on something that's not moving. And there's literally an infinite number of ways to do isometrics. The two guys who really opened my mind and taught me about the isometrics, Bud Jeffries, he's got some great products out there in isometrics. And then Steve Usta, he's got 2 books. Rock, Iron, and Steel has a chapter on isometrics. And then he's got a book called, I think, Iron Isometrics. And you just basically can push on an immovable object in so many different directions to build strength in that direction. So like right now, I like to do some presses. So I'll put a power rack is great for isometrics. I get the bar down at the bottom and I'll have it 2 bars that stop me from pushing further. And I'll start in, I do close grip and I'll hold it for, maybe 10 seconds. Then I move it out a little bit. I do 4 positions.
Okay.
Where I'm going basically max 100% effort pushing against this immovable object. Then I move it up to a midpoint of the bench. Then I move it up to the lockout, all 4 positions. I'll do the same with military press, and then I'll do deadlifts like that. And then I start just freestyling where I just think of weird angles I can push in and pull in, and I'm doing it, max effort, or I'll do it just pulses where I explode and go to basically max effort very quick and then let off, where I'll hold it at 60% for a minute. I vary it up. And one thing I've really learned that helps with the bending is where I push with one hand and pull with one hand. And so in my power rack, I can create variations, thousands of variations, where one hand's pushing down here, one hand's pulling up there, or maybe I'm on my pull-up bar standing up and I'll just push with this hand while I pull down with this one. And all these different pushing, pulling variations just engage your core and build that core strength. And so these isometrics they build you in all sorts of different angles. They're great for building max strength. They also teach the mind-body connection where you can literally, teach yourself to fire more muscle fibers at a time, so you can harness more of your strength. I just think you gain so much from them, and I love them. That's mainly my focus on Monday now. I do like to do some dynamic movements. I do some deadlifts, some swings, some farmer carries and stuff, but I've been focusing on the isometrics this summer.
Wow, that's cool. I've never really heard anyone explain.
Check out Usta. Check out his Rock, Iron, Steel and Iron Isometrics. They're phenomenal books.
Interesting. I've definitely heard of people in history of martial arts and stuff like that trying to throw a tree or something, different things like that.
Mighty Gamma, Great Gamma.
Yeah.
Great Gamma. He would, literally a huge tree. He had this belt he would wrap around it, and he would do his throws on the tree. And I forget what the exact quote is, but he said, once you've thrown a tree, throwing a man is easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of it comes back from Sass, Alexander Sass, the great performing strongman. He's kind of the godfather, I guess, of isometrics, where he was a prisoner of war and escaped from his cell, I think, 3 different times. He would just be in his cell pulling on the bars just to get himself stronger. And finally he got so damn strong, he pulled the bars apart and escaped. He did it 3 times, I think. But he's kind of like the godfather of isometrics.
That's
and
wild.
was one of the greatest performing strongmen ever.
Yeah, yeah. How do you feel after an isometric workout as far as like soreness compared to like a regular workout? Is there any difference?
Yeah, I think it's easier to recover from the isometric workouts.
Uh-huh.
I think, lots of times I leave the workouts feeling more energized instead of tired. And if I do just a short isometric workout, I'll definitely leave feeling more energy. And it's another thing with isometrics is it strengthens your nerves and creates nerve power, where you learn, because your nerves control your muscle. Yeah. And when you're pushing against that immovable object, you're really strengthening your nerves and teaching your nerves to fire the muscles. And so when you train those nerves, lots of times it gives you this energy and this just good feeling. And so lots of times I'll leave workouts feeling more fresh and energized than when I went into them if I do just isometrics, especially a shorter session.
That's cool. That's really cool. I've never really had that broken down for me before, and I'm definitely going to start trying some of that stuff.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun too, because there's so many different exercises. Workouts are shorter, and you can move very fast between exercises.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like it, and I feel like it personally. I've gained a lot from isometrics.
That's cool. All right. So we touched a little bit about motivation, but I mean, you're doing some of the craziest stuff in the bending world, I'd say. So is it just the fact that you keep continuing to outdo yourself, or because I feel like you're doing stuff that no one's done? So kind of take me through what motivates you to keep getting out there and doing something as wild as bending 60 gold nails and, two red nails taped together, or, 5 red nails and then a 3-mile walk with a 150-pound pack and all this stuff. I
just like to push myself. It kind of goes in with the obsession we were talking about a little bit before. I get so obsessed on stuff, and I just throw myself into it 100%. And, I just try to push myself to, I don't really compare myself to other people as much as I just try to push myself harder and harder. And I'm really big into setting goals, and I always think you should set big, crazy goals. And I'll just think of things, dream up of things that maybe seem like I shouldn't be able to do them at the time, and I'll just obsess about it. I'll create plans. I'll write it down and put it in my pocket and carry that around with me all the time, where I'm just constantly thinking about it. And a lot of it's just, you're playing games with yourself mentally and getting yourself to believe you can do things, and just learning how to push yourself. And that's why I love bending. I just like pushing myself and seeing where, how hard I can push myself and what I can get myself to do that I couldn't do before.
Yeah, that's awesome. And your love for it is very clear. I feel like anybody could watch your videos or look at your Instagram page and see that you have a deep, deep love for steel bending, and it's just very cool to see.
It's a lot of fun. I love it.
So how about, we kind of touched on what type of strength you need to be a good bender, but I've been starting to be interested in like switching that question around. So tell me, in what ways you felt like you're now stronger because of bending?
So I guess a few things. Your wrists get very strong with bending. My wrist strength has gotten a lot stronger. Bending taxes your wrist a ton. So you create wrist strength. You create tendon strength. My tendons in my forearms, they didn't used to be there. I didn't used to feel these big cords in my forearms that I have now. And I think tendon strength, a lot of the old time strongman talked about your tendons and the secret to super strength being your tendons and whatnot. And, I believe it because I've seen it in myself, these tendons thicken and grow. So I think you develop a lot of tendon strength. And then like we talked about before, the isometric strength, it's a different type of strength and dynamic. It just is. And it's very useful with a lot of things. And it's bending so isometric, you build that. And then the other thing I think is the core strength that with brace bending, it obliterates your core. And I think the mid and long bars build more functional core strength than about anything out there.
How about traditional lifts? Like when I started bending regularly, when I went back to hit a deadlift PR, it was way up. And I mean, that might be just because I'm still kind of newish, so I'm building strength, but I really kind of believe that my hand strength and stuff from bending transferred over and gave me a bigger deadlift.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I don't keep a lot of track on increasing my squat or deadlift. I mean, I do, but I don't. Like, so I don't have goals with those things as much. So I can't tell you like a specific number carryover or anything, but I think one thing would just be learning, you learn to use your body and create more force and position. So I think you're learning to, and the huge key of bending, like the old timer, I love the old time strongman, and that's one of my main things I like with bending. And, the old time strongman talked about how your body has a governor on it, that your body is used to so much more than what it actually normally does because your mind is limiting your body so you don't hurt yourself. And it's been proven that that's true because when the car falls on somebody in a grandma or somebody picks the car up, you obviously can do it, right? Their mind just limits her. And so I think with bending, you can teach yourself to take that governor off and, extend it. So instead of only using 40% of your strength, you're going to 50, you're going to 60. And you learn, and that is honestly the most important thing in bending to me is the mental part of it. And I think that would carry over to your other lifts, teaching yourself to harness more of the power you have inside of you.
Yeah. Bending's nice because I feel like within reason, technically I could go take out the gold nail and hit on it with everything I got and, go nowhere without sustaining any injury, but if I went in the other room and put 500 pounds on the squat rack and tried to squat it and try to like go past my governor, I'm going to get folded in half, So it's nice that bending, you can experiment with going past that governor without much detriment, so to speak. I know there's injuries, of course, but it's almost like an isometric training. I think I touched on that, or Gil touched on that in his episode, was like what's, basically missing a bend is similar to isometric training, right?
Yeah, no, it is. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with failing bends. I fail bends all the time. And, Derek Graybill posted today that, I think he said he failed a bunch of bends, but he did bend a gold nail in doubles, which was awesome. But then he failed a bunch of bends today. And honestly, there's so much strength. I've developed just as much or more strength in my failures as when I complete a bend, because it's isometric and, you're just building that strength. And failures are great. You build a lot of strength in those failures.
Oh, absolutely.
I fail stuff all the time. All the time I miss bends I want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about as far as recovery and or nutrition for bending?
So for recovery, for me, the two biggest things are sleep and nutrition. I feel like shit if I don't get enough sleep and don't eat good. I like 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night. I normally get 8, and if I get under that, I don't feel as good. I think sleep's really important for me personally. Some people get away with not sleeping that much and work fine, but my body likes it. And nutrition, if I eat junk or am not eating lots of fruits and vegetables and good meats, I don't feel good in my body. So I normally go to the farmer's market every week, and our local farmer's market, I try to buy most of our food there. We eat lots of fruits and vegetables and grass-fed beef and free-range eggs and pastured pork. And, I try to eat like good local meat. And I feel a lot better with that. So those are probably the two biggest things with recovery for me. A lot of people do the different contrast baths and whatnot. I don't know, I just don't personally do it. I'm sure they're great, and I've tried them before, but it just always is kind of more of a pain in the ass to get everything ready and all that.
Yeah.
I do have this kind of massager thing that's got these balls on it that you put your arm in, and if I get really sore in my forearms, I'll use that massager on my forearms or my hands, and that helps. But for recovery, mainly the nutrition and the sleep. I like herbs. I don't know if you ever take herbs, but I've gotten into herbs in the last couple of years, and I use a lot of different herbs that I think help make me feel better and give me more energy and stuff.
Interesting. I mean, I hear about people talking about turmeric. I guess is probably the one that people talk about the most, but that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, there's this guy, Logan Christopher. I learned a lot from listening and reading to him. He's got a company called Lost Empire Herbs. And so, like I take rhodiola rosea, ashwagandha, nettle root, sometimes pine pollen, sometimes Tongkat Ali. There are these, kind of weird herbs I hadn't heard of before doing the research, but these things are effective, and I feel better and get energy from them, and my body just feels good when I'm taking them. I also, one thing, I've always, kind of think about is longevity in the bending world. So many people bend for 2 years, they break themselves and they're done. And I don't want to do that. I want to be bending when I'm 60, 70 years old. Yeah. And so I think a lot about what to do for longevity. And I did some research, and there's MSM powder, which really helps your cartilage and your, your different structures and whatnot. So I take that every day. I also like bone broth, beef bone broth. And I don't know, there's no scientific study that says it's going to help prolong my bending, but it's good for your joints and your, it's got so much collagen and stuff from the bones in there that it's, it helps build that stuff and protect you. So, I think it helps, and, I'm hoping that helps with my longevity.
Oh yeah. I know a number of grapplers who take collagen just to keep their joints feeling good. I've never experimented with myself, but I should.
Yeah, it's and I get it from, there's this local butcher. It's all Michigan local grass-fed cows, and they make it. I made it myself a couple times, but it just takes so long. I don't have 24 hours to be boiling the stuff.
Yeah.
And then I got it from the store. I was taking it from the store, something that was supposed to be very high quality. And then once I tried it from the butcher, I realized the stuff from the store was shit. Like, for one, the stuff from the butcher at room temperature is solid. Like, it's solid as a block. There's so much collagen in it. And it just tastes totally different. Like, the stuff in the box I was buying tasted artificial after I tasted the real stuff from these local grass-fed cows that the butcher was making. So I like to go there and buy that.
Cool. So you've done wild stuff. I mentioned it before. Do you have one feat of strength that you're most proud of at this time?
I don't know if I have just one, but the things that
you can name a couple.
Well, those like the big kind of multi-bend type sessions are the ones I think I've enjoyed the most. Like bending the 102 red nails last summer, that was a good one. The 60 gold nails, the 66-inch hits bastards, those kind of like, where it's lots of bends in a row. I like it because of the mental aspect. It you're getting where it's just your body's breaking down, it's painful, and you got to keep pushing yourself and just not quit. And so I like the mental component that's involved with those kind of big epic type feats. I like the singular feats too, but I don't know, I like the battle of kind of those long feats. Yeah.
And how about stuff for the future? Are there any ones that you're having in the works that you want to talk about? Or
I got one more big feat I'm going to do this summer on August 8th. I'm going to bend a 50-pound box of 60 penny nails. That one's always been a really cool feat to me, and John Brookfield's the only guy who's done it. John's, a beast and a legend in the strength world. And a real nice guy too. I got to talk with him earlier this summer. I had emailed him about the feat, and he said, let's talk. And we talked on the phone. Super nice guy. And he gave me all the information about when he had done it. He's done it 3 different times. And but besides John, nobody else has done it. So I'm looking forward to doing that feat on August 8th.
That's cool. So how is that going to work as far as wraps and things goes?
So I've found out that, you know, you can I just pre-wrap them. The one with the nail head is easy. I mean, not the where it's just a spike, because those they just go right in and out. With the nail head, if you just do a real loose wrap,
it's just easy enough.
You know, you can put it in. You don't have to have real tight wraps. I mean, a 60 penny nail is not, you know, a tough bend for me. So it doesn't have to be some real tight wrap. I can, as long as I can just stick it in and just do it over and over.
Nice, nice.
But it's funny how when you do these kind of long bending things come up that you don't think about when you start training for them, that you end up being like, shit, I got to kind of focus on this or think about this. And so I did my first, because my hands kind of just got healed up after the 66 6-inch bastards. And so I had my first big training day for the 50-pound box yesterday. Yeah. And so I've been 125 in 34 minutes. And while I was doing it, my shoulders were getting tired. Just because you're constantly right here like this, your shoulders are up. And I hadn't thought about shoulder endurance. And so after the workout, I went and did just tons of Indian clubs. And I love Indian clubs. I don't know if that's probably not recovery as much as prehab for your shoulders, but I love Indian clubs to protect them. And I did really high rep Indian club stuff just to work on shoulder endurance. And I think that's going to be something that is important. By the time you get to 550, when you're just over and over, your shoulders are going to get fatigued. And something else I hadn't thought about before these bends is, like when you're doing 100 reds or something, or like 500 of these, you beat up your chest because you're constantly pushing on it like this. Like you get big scrapes and stuff on your chest. And so like when I've done these, I learned that when I was training for the 102 red nails. So when I did the 102, I wore 2 t-shirts. So there's more material between my fists so I don't, you know, mess it up as much. It's funny, like the little things you learn that you wouldn't think would be a problem when you're training for these. Like with the 60 golds, I learned that when you're doing high reps like that, with braced bending, the inside of your thighs start getting the same thing. They start getting, you know, scraped up and torn and almost like rug burns on them. So you got to kind of build up toughness there.
Yeah, that's something you don't think about so much. Even with, I just did my first horseshoe the other night, and after I opened that thing up and I was bending it over my thigh, that was very painful.
Oh, very painful. The first time, for one, congrats on the horseshoe. A horseshoe, that's a good achievement. Congrats, it's fun. But I remember very vividly the first horseshoe I ever did. And I was left on the outside of my leg with a big bruise. And like, you know, there for a little bit, I would bruise there until my body toughened up to it.
Yeah, it does toughen up for sure. I know from grappling, I'll probably, when I return to it, my toes and knees are probably all going to be skinned again. But I remember when I first started training, just the bruises I had and the skins and everything. And then all of a sudden, you know, after some time, that stuff never happens anymore. It's wild how the body adapts.
The body's amazing for its adaptation.
Absolutely. How about in the beginning? This is just out of curiosity for me. Were you mostly double overhand? Like, were you just trying to chase down the red nail originally? And then when did the brace bending come on for you?
100%. When I started bending, the red nail was my goal. And all I did was double overhand bending for about a year. And this was a huge pivotal moment for me in my bending journey, was the first steel shredder competition. So I started bending beginning of 2016. The first steel shredder was beginning in 2017. And it was a snapping event. So I saw that event. I competed in it. And that's the first time I'd ever had any correspondence with David Warren. And, you know, started getting to know him. And now I know him fairly well. And he's a great guy. But he gave me the advice then, not just to double overhand bend. And he told me, you know, I should get good at all the types of bending and be well-rounded. And there was so much more in double overhand bending, and become a well-rounded steel bender. You know, he gave me that advice and encouragement, and I listened to him, and that's what I did. And I'm so glad I did, because there's so much more out there than double overhand bending. There's nothing wrong if all you want to do is double overhand bending. Double overhand bending is awesome and is a great thing. And a lot of people, like doing that and don't want to try other stuff. But for me personally, there's so much variety that you can do. I love the variety of it. And I think it's important for injury prevention too. And I think that's one reason I haven't had many injuries, is when you do all the different types of bending, you're building your strength in every angle. So you don't build these imbalances. And I think that happens with double overhand bending when that's all you do. You sometimes get some imbalances, and that gets you in trouble. So I think building yourself from the different angles, for one, is fun, and for two, helps you with injury prevention.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if it was on an Instagram post or when one of the other podcasts you were on, you talked about the importance of being well-rounded and at least being pretty good at all the other style bendings, and that. So I went back to the Iron Mind bag of nails and just made sure I could get up to blue with all the styles. You inspired me to make sure I could bend at each nail reverse and double underhand, because I think you're right. It just in the millionth grappling comparison, but I also try to be well-rounded there too. So anytime you can be well-rounded, it's important.
And honestly, for grappling, you're probably going to get more benefit doing reverse and double underhand than double overhand, because they're more wrist and hand strength, more wrist than anything involved than double overhand. So you'd probably get more carryover focusing on them more than double overhand if your main thing is to train for grappling.
Well, yeah. I mean, originally it was, of course, but then as anytime you get psyched about something, then it's you kind of just want to succeed in that thing. Daniel Strauss and I talked about that a lot yesterday, is how we sort of get into these things with the intent to become a stronger grappler, and then you realize how cool those things are, and then you want to take that to the level as far as you can too,
Yeah, no, he seems like a pretty cool guy too. He does lots of different training. I like following him on Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah, he actually just tore some cards. Did you see that today? I think it was.
I didn't know.
Tore a deck of cards while in a squat hugging a sandbag, like a very heavy sandbag. I don't remember how much weight it was, but it was pretty neat.
Yeah, oh, that's cool.
You did some card tearing. Going back on your Instagram, I see.
Yeah, I mean, I like to perform. I like to, be a performing strong man and do performances and stuff. And so when you do that, you want to develop all the feats: card tearing, driving nails through boards, rolling up frying pans. So I can do all that stuff. I don't do a lot of card tearing just because my real love and passion is the steel bending. But every once in a while, I'll tear a deck of cards just to keep the strength up. I probably haven't torn a deck of cards, maybe even in a couple months. But I definitely can tear cards, and card tearing is cool and fun.
Yeah.
I just don't do a whole lot of it, but I like it.
Which came first? Was it steel, like a fascination with old-time strongmen, then steel bending and all the other feats, or did you start out with card tearing and then find steel bending after?
I started the steel bending first, but I started learning to tear a deck of cards pretty shortly thereafter.
Okay. And
the old-time strongmen, though, hold a very special place for me. Like, I've gotten to train with Dennis Rodgers and go to the Old-Time Strongman University, and got to meet Slim the Hammer Man and go to his house and meet Pat Bovielitis and a lot of the other strongmen. And, there are a lot of times on these, the grip board and Instagram and stuff, people, the people that are more into the certs and stuff don't talk about those guys as much, because those guys, they do it for a living. That's how they make their money, and they're not doing certs and stuff like that. But some of the strongest benders in the world are those guys. And, Pat Bovielitis is a beast. Some of these guys out there, Stephen Miller down in Texas right now for brace bending is so strong. And a lot of people don't know him because he doesn't do the certs and the other stuff. But he's a performing strongman. And, he's good friends with Dennis Rodgers and trains with him and his dad. Has done strongman and martial arts stuff too. So a lot of these guys, I think, would be cool for you to explore talking to them too, because
absolutely,
they'll have a unique perspective with the performing aspect of it, and also they're some of the strongest people out there.
Yeah, Yeah, I like that. I was unaware of Dennis Rodgers till I watched the documentary on Mighty Atom.
Dennis is, he's the godfather right now, living strong. I mean, hey, Slim the Hammer Man would be, I guess he's Dennis's mentor.
Yeah.
But, for people that, are still actively doing it and stuff, Dennis is huge and has done more performing around the world than I think probably anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that sort of, and I guess this would be in your case as well. Something that I like that ties all of this together is the fact that a lot of the old-time strongmen were grapplers as well. The Mighty Atom, trained with a wrestler and did jiu-jitsu himself, and Farmer Burns did feat strengths, like strength feats of strength, and it's all just kind of connected in there. I love.
Yeah, a lot of those guys grappled back in the day. Farmer Burns, I like that guy, and I like his book, and the feat he's done that not a lot of people have done that I just love this feat is the hangman's noose.
Yeah.
You know about that feat?
I know that he would hang himself, but I don't know if it particularly.
It's just that. Yeah, you just basically hang yourself, but you don't die because your neck is so damn strong.
And he would whistle Dixie or something while he was
like Yankee Doodle Dandy or something. Yeah.
Yeah. That guy's unreal. He was
I think he had a 20-inch neck, and he was like not a big guy.
Yeah. Really awesome. All right. So we've reached the point of the show I call the medley, the rapid fire series of questions. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right. Favorite thing to bend?
The braced bars, short, mid, and long bars. Braced is my favorite.
Nice. Hardest thing to bend for you?
For me, the thing that I'm probably the least good at is horseshoes. For whatever reason, I like bending horseshoes, and I do them sometimes, but I don't do it a ton. And that's probably my weakest form of bending is the horseshoes.
Interesting. Because based on your ability to, brace bend other stuff, I feel like you would rip horseshoes in half, basically.
I can bend horseshoes.
Yeah.
But it's just different angles, different strengths. I'm pretty good at opening horseshoes. The crush on them, I'm not as good at.
Yeah.
It's so all this bending stuff is so specific.
It is.
Just because you're good at one type of bending doesn't mean you'll be good without training, extensively at another type of bending. It's just you get strong at the angles you work in and the techniques you're working on, and that's the one I've done the least on. And so, I'd say is easily my weakest form of bending. At some point in time, I'd like to make it a strength, because it is so fun. But it just, for whatever reason, I haven't focused on it as much.
Yep. I wasn't able to, that first one I did, I wasn't able to put it into a heart like you did on that YouTube video that you sent me. I tried, but I couldn't put it into a heart. Maybe next time.
Yeah, you'll get it eventually.
Strongest bending style for you?
The short braced bars, the short ones, I think are probably my strength right now.
And weakest bending style?
That'd be the horseshoes.
Yeah. How about something outside of bending, lifting, strength sports in general that you enjoy to do?
So I doing stuff with my family. I'm married, my wife Kelly, and then I've got 3 kids, 3 little girls, 3, 5, and 8. And doing stuff with my family, and we love to cook. I used to live in New Orleans, and I'm still pretty obsessed with New Orleans. So we like to do a lot of Creole and Cajun cooking and listening to New Orleans music.
Oh, cool. That's cool. How about the one bend that's gotten away so far?
It's a bend. So there's one bend that I want to do that I haven't focused on, but I've tried it a couple times, and I failed it every time I try. And at some point in time, maybe, in the fall here, I'll focus on it and hopefully be able to do it. But the Wonder Bar is a real tough bar, and I failed it a couple times I've tried it. I'd like to get that one.
Okay, what's the dimensions on that?
So do you know about the Wonder Bar at all, or Chris?
No.
No. So there's a movie, you should check out the movie. I think it's called Bending Steel.
Okay.
but it's a documentary on a guy, Chris Wonder Shuck. His Wonder is the nickname Dennis Rodgers gave him, but Chris Shuck is his name. And so he's not a big guy. I think he's maybe 150 pounds. And he had this long battle with this bar that he was finally able to bend for the first time, I think, in front of this audience on Coney Island. And I believe it's 2 inches wide, 3/8 of an inch thick, and 30 inches long. I think those are the dimensions. But it's so wide, it's hard to hold it. It's it's a flat bar, but it's real wide. And I tried it a couple times over the years here and there, and then failed every time. I'd like to focus on it and hopefully be able to do it.
Wow, cool. How about, who's the strongest person you know?
So I really admire mental strength, and I love just people that won't quit and are tough and tenacity. And my college wrestling coach, David Shooter, is the toughest son of a bitch I've ever met. And I learned so much from wrestling under him, just about, mental toughness and not quitting and stuff. I owe that guy a lot. And he's mentally the toughest person I've ever met.
Nice. How about the best piece of advice you were ever given? Can be about bending or about life in general.
Oh, I don't know about life. But for bending, I think it would go back to David Horn, when he told me to, just bend everything, be a varied bender and get good at everything. And I think that was key.
Awesome. And how about the funniest reaction a person has had when they find out what you spend your spare time doing?
So I think the funniest stuff has come from kids. Like when you're performing at a school or something. Kids, I just love doing the strongman stuff for kids. For one, they're just, they get so into it that they literally, you just open up their little minds, and then they're so listening to you and intent that then you can give them a good message. And I like to give them good messages on, your goals and, all sorts of stuff. But then they just say funny stuff. And so after performances, kids have said, asked if I was Superman, or asked if I could break the teacher's desk, or if I could break the school, or, one kid said, wow, you're stronger than my dad. I thought my dad was strong, but he can't do what you're doing. So the kids will just say all sorts of funny stuff, which I always think is cool.
Oh, man, that's cool. And how about, do you have a bending ritual? So when I watch your videos, I appreciate them because in contrast to a lot of other bending videos, it kind of just seems like you set up, sort of just get your mind right, and then just bend the biggest things going. There's no screaming. There's no like smelling salts or anything. There's no scary music playing. It's just you in the garage, pretty serene until you just grunt, and then there's this giant piece of steel that's bent now.
Yeah, it's a lot of people, I think, harness their strength and, by anger. They learn to get themselves angry and, listen to crazy music and, get themselves all pumped up and stuff. But that's not me. I'm in general a pretty laid back person. And I don't know, bending's not an angry thing for me. I don't get angry to bend. But you're right. Right beforehand, I get myself in the position to go, and I normally, I don't know, I just kind of, it'll be normally before my bends, there's a few seconds of me just kind of getting myself ready.
Oh yeah, I've watched many of them. You take a sip of water or a sip of something, you chalk your jeans, chalk your hands, and then you're ready to go. It's great. I love that there's no like sound to it. It makes it like even cooler, I feel like.
Yeah. I don't listen to music at all while I bend. It's I like just having quiet where I can just think, and it's better for me to get into stuff, just having a clear head and thinking than having the music. It's just a distraction to me.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. It's like even more like samurai or something. It's cool. All right, that's it for the medley. All right, in closing, who's someone, we've talked about it off air, but who's someone you'd like to see me have on the show?
I forget everyone I messaged you, but I'd love to see Ruben, and I know you said Ruben's going to come on. Yeah. I'd love to hear his background. Ruben's just so damn strong and such a beast, and I'd like to hear more about his, because he builds these stone walls,
Yes.
And I'd like to hear more about his background and how he got into it and stuff. I'd love to see you get David Horn on.
I know.
And hear more from him. Some of the old-time strongmen, like I said before. And David Wigren, I'd love to see on. I saw earlier that I watched Gil's podcast today. He brought him up.
Yeah.
David is one of the strongest steel benders ever. He's been around for a long time. There's different kind of groups of benders along the way, it seems like, where there were these people that were all bending at the same time and were big.
Yeah.
And then they all quit. But David just keeps bending. I don't think he's bending right now. He's mainly focusing on arm wrestling. But he's so strong, and he seems like a very smart guy. And it's good. I think he would have really good perspectives on training and stuff.
Yeah, I'm talking to him. He's coming on for sure. And, what's funny about getting David Horn on is that's what Dan Strauss said. That was his recommendation. He said, oh, you got to have David on, but good luck. Because he's like, when I tried to get him on for my podcast, his words were, I already did one podcast. So Dan had to become close personal friends with him and pester him a long while before he came on. But he thought I might have a chance because it's a podcast specific about steel bending, and that's what David loves. So maybe we can get him on, but we'll see.
Yeah, David, honestly, David, for the world of grip and stuff, he's done so much for it and has so much knowledge and has been in the game so long. And I think it's really cool that, now I think his main love is steel bending. For a long time it was grip and doing grip competitions, but he's kind of fell into the bending and snapping more, and that's kind of his current love. But he's so smart on training and has such a perspective because he's been in it so long. The podcast with Dan Strauss was awesome, but the bending part of it was kind of a small part of it. There was kind of his whole life and history, and I think he could, offer a lot more on just a bending podcast that wasn't delved into on the other one.
Yeah, I listened to that episode. I told Dan on the show yesterday. I listened to that episode just like while I was mowing the lawn or something in headphones. Then I watched it on YouTube. Then I listened to it again on a long drive. I just found that one to be so interesting. That was probably my favorite one he's done.
Yeah. No, it was a cool podcast for sure. I learned a lot about David doing that. A lot of stuff I didn't know.
Do you know what the other show that he did prior to that is?
I don't. I that's the only podcast I've seen him on.
Okay, I'll have to track that down. How about tips and advice for beginner benders?
So for beginners, I think, the true strength in bending or anything is built over time with, just accumulated effort. So I wouldn't just destroy yourself right off the rip. Just progress, in steps. Don't try to progress too fast. You don't want to hurt yourself and then never bend again. That happens all the time where people are getting into it and they just go too hard because you can't hurt yourself. This stuff puts a lot of pressure on your body. When you're not ready for it, you can break yourself. And so I would say just progress nice and slow, but be progressing and always, add a little bit more and build it that way. And I think that's huge. And I also would say not to get frustrated when you do fail something, because you're going to fail stuff along the way, and you get stronger with those failures mentally and physically. And, just keep at it, set goals for yourself and figure out a plan to get to those goals, and then just do the work.
Awesome. And if people don't know, where can they find you on social media and stuff?
I've got a YouTube, and then I've also got Instagram, Don Cummings Steel Bending.
Nice. And any events, brands, or gear you want to shout out?
So, my steel bending competition in May. We've had 2 so far, the Michigan Steel Bending and Breaking Championship. And you can check out I've got a book that I'm always updating on the history of steel bending competitions. But if you're a steel bender, there's nothing funner than getting together with a bunch of other steel benders, rooting each other on, competing. You learn so much, and it's awesome. And I think we'll have it again next year, probably the first week in May again.
Cool.
But yeah, check that out if you're into bending and you want to come and compete. People, if they're listening to this now, we've got at the end of August, I think it's August 29th, is the Don Larkin contest. Have you heard of Don Larkin at all?
Just what you wrote about in your book and what you talked about with Jed on This Week in Grip.
So Don Larkin was a very intense man. I think everyone can learn a lot from him about intensity. And he's from Michigan, and he died a couple years ago, and his wife now is having a grip competition. This will be the second year in his name, and that's the end of August. So if you're around Michigan, it'd be great to see you come to that. There's going to be a steel bending event, double overhand bending, because Don loved bending, so we'll have a double overhand bending event in it. So that's cool. And then other than that, the steel shredder competitions I think are great.
Yeah.
So,
Nice. Did you know Don personally, or just?
I met Don one time. I went to the last King Kong event that was held at his gym. And so I got to meet him one time, and just seemed like a very nice, genuine man, and somebody who, even when I met him, he's an older person, and, wasn't as strong as he once was, but you can just see the fire and the intensity in his eyes. I think as far as that intensity, and not a lot of people rivaled him.
Wow, that's cool. All right, well, that's it, Don. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, you care if I share one other thing we didn't get to?
Yeah,
I wanted to share this because when you talked about the mental stuff in some of your other ones, and so I was thinking about that stuff. And to me, the mental component is so huge with bending. It's about getting yourself to do stuff that you probably shouldn't be able to do, and learning to push your body further and further each time. And so I don't know if you've ever read this book, but this book is so huge to me, this Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.
I'm aware of it. Yep.
This book has so much, like the whole book's about mental strength and mental toughness. And it's just so many tips and quotes that are unbelievable in there. And I've got, like, if you look through mine, it's so dog-eared and marked up. I get so much out of this book and have taken so many tips. But I got 3 quotes I can share with you, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
So one quote I just wrote down at the beginning that I read from a quote from Pat Poviolaitis. I wrote it in this book, and it was from a post I saw of Pat's, and it said, "You got to be strong and expect the unexpected. Never quit, even if it mauls you." And I think that's so important about bending.
Nice.
Then a quote from David Goggins in here. A normal person would give up. They'd say, "Fuck it. It's just not meant to be," and refuse to torture themselves 1 minute more. But I wasn't wired normal. And I think that's key to a lot of this bending stuff too, is you got to play games with yourself to get you to do this stuff. And Goggins' book is full of that stuff and techniques to basically trick yourself and play games with yourself to be able to push yourself further than you should be able to do. And, I think it's cool with that. Then I have a quote from Slim the Hammer Man.
All right.
This quote I read for the first time in this book, The Performing Strongman's Experience. I don't know if you've seen this book, but it's a cool book by Eric Moss, who's a strong man. This is from Slim.
Oh, Eric's coming on.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yes, this is Slim's quote. "The difference between a human and a machine is a human will push till he thinks he can't go any further. An hour later, you'll find him dancing the old boogaloo. He didn't really give it everything he had. A machine, like a crane, will pull and pull until the machinery breaks down. The difference is in your mind. If your machinery hasn't broken down, you haven't truly given it everything you got."
Wow.
And so I think that's a huge thing with people who are, been doing this for a while, is just learning to harness and tap into. You got more in there. You just gotta, I spent so much time with the mental stuff. You just gotta figure out how to get more out of your body than what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing those. That's great.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's like I said at the beginning, I'm really pumped for your podcast. I think this is going to do a lot to help grow bending, get more people bending, and I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, the reception has been better than expected so far, for sure. So I'm psyched about it, and it's nice to just get to talk to everybody. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, that's got to be fun talking with all the different people you're going to have on, and you've had on. That's fun.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Don. Well, I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, man. Bye.